Well, what was the compact? It said for 12 years we were going to work together as follows. Number one, in our community, we had a lot of city-county agencies. We had a city-county planning and zoning commission. We had a city-county board of health. We had a city-county board of, we had multiple city-county sewer districts, city-county, city-county, city-county. And what we found was, when I say city-county, it meant the city would appoint half the people on the board and the county would appoint the other half. And what we found was that they sort of played us off against each other. I know you find this hard to believe, but the Board of Health would come in and say to me as mayor of the old city, well, the county's going to give us $450,000, so you have to give us $450,000. And then they'd go over to the county and say, well, the city's going to give us $450,000, now you got to give. Next thing you know, we've given them the $900,000 and they move on and nobody keeps an eye on them because they're this city-county thing. So we decided that we would take the health department, or we would take the inspections department, we would take there wasn't inspections, it was the health department, it was the human rights commission, it was, there were 7 of them that were city-county appointments, and we decided we would divide them up. The city would take some of them, the county would take some of them. The city would fund all of the money for some of them, the county would fund all of the money for some of them. So, for example, the Planning and Zoning Commission became a 100% county responsibility. I remember that one and the city took on human relations, the city took on, we had a science center, we have a science center, it was a city-county science center, the city took that on. The city took the zoo on, and the health department, again, because it was more county-wide in nature, went over 100%. And when it was all said and done, when you added both sides of the ledger, we were now both going to pay about the same. So it was very close. Nobody was taking on more financial responsibility than they had to. But in terms of accountability, we had now, as a part of the compact, said, city's going to deal with these, the city's going to fund these, city's going to watch over them closely. County's going to fund these and watch over them closely. Second thing we decided to do is that we would freeze annexation because the city had aggressively, as an attempt to get people to start thinking about being one community, it had aggressively laid out an annexation plan to annex everything in the county that wasn't already a part of another city. So we put that on the shelf. That was sort of the cannon that we brought to the fight. That was our weapon. We were going to annex everything, and we said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to put it up on the shelf, no more annexation. And then the third and final thing we said is that we're going to start sharing taxes. And in our community, we have an occupation tax that is the exact in the city as it is outside the city in the county. And we decided that we would start sharing because we thought we were confusing business leaders when the mayor would meet them at the airport and say, welcome to Louisville, come into our 60 square miles called Louisville. And the county judge would be on the other side as the person would come off the plane and would say, welcome to Louisville, and whatever you do, locate outside the 60 square miles called the city of Louisville and locate in Jefferson County. And generally, the decision maker would get back on the plane and say, look, life's too short. I'm not playing this game. I'm out of here. So we decided that we would start looking at ways that we could work together. And the only way you do that is you put some skin in the game. And so we set up a process where now the mayor of the old city cared about the industrial park in the suburban area, and the county judge in the old county cared about what was going on downtown. And the way we did that is we started sharing occupation tax. And we set up a formula. It was a very simple formula. It took all the occupation tax that were generated over a period of years, and we figured the percentage that went to the old city and a percentage that went to the old county in the old days, and that was where we started. So interestingly enough, the old city, although smaller than the county, but because of the tall buildings with people making big salaries, they actually had a larger chunk of the total occupation tax being generated than did the county. So let's just say it was 60-40. So every new dollar created in Jefferson County, no matter where the occupation, no matter where the job was created, inside the city, outside the city, we would split it 60-40. And every 5 years we do another analysis and see if it changed, and if it changed, then we would make the appropriate change. And before we split 60-40, we decided that there might be some infrastructure cost requirements. So we said if it's in the county or if it's in the city, there was a sliver of dollars that would go to the government for potential infrastructure support before we divided up the occupation tax 60-40. And that put us into a position where all of our economic development efforts were focused in the same direction. The economic development team, and Brad will tell you, back in those days, I mean, at that point, there wasn't any competition between the mayor and the county judge for a job or for a business. We went together. The county judge and I at the time, we went together. The perfect example was Tricon, which was the spinoff from PepsiCo, which now is called Yum, that had KFC and Taco Bell and Pizza Hut and Long John Silver's and yada, yada, yada. And they decided to come to Louisville, and the county judge and I made the pitch with the governor, and we welcomed them to Louisville, and they were physically, part of them were in the city, part of them were in the county, but we made it so that we were all in this thing together, and we worked that very, very well. And we said 12 years this would be in effect. So merger is over, discussions about it are set aside. Let's just take a deep breath and let's see if we can have better accountability on how we spend our public money. Let's stop this annexation fight, which was just taking brother against brother, sister against sister. And let's create an opportunity where we're all in this thing together in terms of economic development. 12 years. Worked out very well, I would submit, and it's something to look at for you all. We then went, I think we extended it for another 10 years, but in that middle of the 10 years is when we put it back on the ballot again. And we put it back on the ballot again because several things happened in the community. We had some significant conflict between the city and county leadership. We had issues dealing with big visible things like should we or shouldn't we bring an NBA team, and one government thought it was a good idea and one government didn't think it was a good idea, and that's no way to run a railroad. And it showed that you got to have a single agenda was our argument. We all need to be on the same page. And a few other things happened, including, interestingly enough, the fear at the end of the census, since we're here at another census, that Foster Pettit's community, combined city-county, would become a larger entity than the city of Louisville. Now it's not apples and apples, because Fayette, Lexington was a merged community. Louisville at the time was not. But there was still this feeling that we were the largest city and we should stay the largest city. And you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the census that's coming up. We may very well fall to be the second largest city, and how terrible would that be? So whatever it took, people began to think about maybe it's time. Business community felt strongly it was time. They had just gone through this NBA thing. They were very much in favor of it as a community, as a segment, and they were very disappointed that the city and county couldn't figure out a way to work it out. I gave you the example of Tricon coming to Louisville. Got a call from the CEO, who's still there today. They were going to build a building right next to the KFC location on the Waterson Expressway to put their expanded facility, and they were told that half the piece of property was in the city and half the piece of property was outside the city in the county. And he called up and said, you know, they needed different permits and different licenses, different certifications. He said, what the heck's going on in this community? I thought you told me, welcome to Louisville. Well, we got that resolved quickly, you can imagine. But the point was, we were able to use that as an example to show the difficulties in terms of running the railroad together. And then we focused a lot on the fact that we were no longer a rural county. The reality is that the structure of Kentucky's county governments are very much structured toward the days of old in the more agrarian, rural setting. And when you drive out any corridor in Louisville, there was no clear demarcation when you ended this urban thing called Louisville and started this suburban rural thing called county. And maybe we had more in common with each other than was separating us, and maybe it was time to pull things together. So we put together a team. The question was, how do you get it done? After it failed the second time in the early 80s, the legislature, generally speaking, the Jefferson County delegation, took away the right for Jefferson County to even vote themselves into a new structure of government. So we had to go back to Frankfort to get the right to put it on the ballot for people to vote. And what we decided to do was the best way to develop the charter was to get every elected official in Jefferson County in a room. And whether you're a suburban city mayor, whether you're the circuit clerk, the county clerk, whether you're the alderman, the fiscal court commissioner, whether you're the fire district, whatever, if you're an elected official, we want you in the room. Now that sounds like a lot of people, and it was a lot of people. But our feeling was, and all our state legislators and all our state senators, we felt like if the elected officials went forward and had a charter that they were willing to sign on, that number one, we could get it back through the legislature in Frankfort to give us the chance to vote, and number two, we'd have a good chance of winning. And I'm not sure we ever got 100%, but we got darn close to a significant majority of all those in the room. And we argued, and we fought, and we screamed, and we yelled, and there were things that I thought were good that got in. There were things that I thought that were good that didn't get in. There were things I wouldn't have done that we still went ahead and did. But the point was we reached a consensus among all of the folks in the room. And that's when the legislature then, our state representatives and senators, went up to Frankfort and said, here it is. You know, out of the room came this. And we would like you, and what's the rest of the state care, one way or the other, to allow our hometown folks to be able to vote on this. And that's how it got on the ballot. And we were, this time we ran a real campaign. We ran a political campaign. The other times it was not run as a political campaign. We had a Republican operative and a Democratic operative, and they were the two heads of the day-to-day running of the campaign. And we had a pollster, and we had advertising, and we had direct mail. I mean, everything that you would do in a campaign, we ran our election as a campaign. Business community raised over $1 million to be able to go forward.